Hey everyone, how you doing today? Thought I'd get some updates out there and show you what's been going on in the last couple days again. To start with, I did update the Wayfarer ST to Tier 2 CPU specs. And you can kind of see here it is now at Tier 2, 100% compliant on the model that's on the workshop currently. To accomplish that, I ended up removing some of the thrusters. I took out a side thruster over on each side and a couple back thrusters, as well as one of the two advanced constructors. I did leave a hole for it though. Um, so other than that, it should be good to go and usable in game. It flies pretty decent how it is. It didn't probably need the extra thrusters I took out. I did not remove any lift thrusters. I kept all 6 of those intact on this ship, so it should be able to have the same type of carrying weight as it had prior. Um, Another thing that got updated is the Merc MX1. This was a very easy update to do. I basically removed the 3 RCS, and that is it. This is a Tier 1 ship now at about just over 5,000 CPU. So it's got a little bit of wiggle room to add some more things to it as well. Now this one didn't come stock with a constructor, and at this point to add, if I go to the right spot, to add a constructor to it, I'm just curious myself real quick here. What does that actually do? Yeah, if you put in a constructor though, it's going to be at 88.3% CPU efficiency. So it does drop it considerably by having that constructor in there. Not much I can do about that, but as a Tier 1 ship, I think it hopefully would work all right for being a cheap starter ship, things like that. Next thing on the bases here, last video I was talking about materials. There's 3 choices. Currently, in the current version of the base, I have it set as carbon substrate, which has the same texture set as steel or hardened steel or combat steel. And I like that texture set, especially for the look I'm trying to accomplish with this race, being more of a metal look. But I did a convert on the base to concrete. I haven't finalized the textures. Actually, I just kind of mass replaced all the textures. And you can kind of see the differences on how it would impact the base on looks. Essentially, you'd lose that metal shiny feel, and instead I have to use an awful lot of this, I don't know, concrete texture. Technically, I believe it's considered carpet, but it works as concrete just fine. But I lose a lot of the texture lights and other things too. So that is the side effect to going with concrete on this base. It's not going to look as good. But you know, on a practical standpoint, the concrete's tougher. It has more hit points, up to like 500 per concrete block, I believe. Or maybe it goes higher than that. 600, I think, maybe. I gotta find a full block and find out now. Do I have a full block somewhere, anywhere? It's the thing, a lot of my creations, they don't have much in full blocks. Because every block I place that's full is kind of like, could it be something else that would add some detail? So, yeah, 600 hit points for a full block of concrete, versus I believe here's a full one, 200 for carbon substrate. So yeah, 400 hit point increase. As in cost, switching it to concrete also makes a lot of sense in this aspect, where it's got a 2-hour and 19-minute build time, and it uses a bunch of stone dust. And with the carbon substrate, it also, well, It's a 2 hour and 18-minute build time. So just about the same, but yeah, I don't know. So I'm gonna leave this up to you guys. What material do you believe the base ought to be? I don't plan on releasing this base for 2 weeks yet, due to what I've got to release prior to that. So I'll let you decide. Should it be substrate, steel, which is going to make it cost more and take about an hour longer in build time, or concrete, which is going to make it look worse, but probably the most effective for the amount of hit points and availability to get resources, especially on planets like this. Now, moving on to something new here. I started out a carrier, but it wasn't the intent I wanted to build for a carrier. I wanted to build a space carrier, but I ended up with something else after I got started, but happen to like this something else as well, but that does not mean I don't want to build a space carrier yet. But let me just show you here what I've got going on so far. And this is a brand new carrier. Got most of the exterior modeled out now. And it is a first of something new for me as well, and that is to build a asymmetrical ship. And this one's pretty much completely asymmetrical except for the very back end of the thruster mounting areas here, which are kind of symmetrical. And I'm still working on these. I'm not totally happy with how my rear thrusters look yet. I think I can do make them look better. But other than that, both sides of the ship are completely unique, and it's really trying to do some different things. But you know, I failed as in what I was trying to build, and that is a space carrier to move other CVs. Now this one you could technically dock like a couple wayfarers on it in this area here, but that's not really what I had in mind. I got to scale up what I'm thinking about quite a bit over what this is. As in CPU tier, this ship's going to again be a tier 4, although I really wish it could have been a tier 3, but it just can't. The problem I've got with CPU tiers is this huge change between 3 and 4. Like 4 is great, 10 million, that allows for most anything. At tier 3 though, it's 1.5 million. And I mean, such a big difference between these two numbers here. Like tier 3, I keep on thinking if it was around 4 million or 5 million, it would make more sense, and then I could make this a tier 3 ship easily, as it's currently sitting at about 2.7 million. Granted, after I added the storage and other parts, it'd probably be closer to 4 million, which is leaving 6 million available CPU at tier 4, which is a lot. And I just wish there was some in-between number there, because it's kind of like either you build a really small ship like the Wayfarer, or maybe a little bit bigger, or you just go crazy and just build really, really big stuff. But there's not like much in between that. As in this one, it is smaller than the Persis. I expect it to be cheaper than the Persis. Current material is combat steel. That could change though. And also on like the guns and stuff I'm throwing on here, I don't know if it really needs them as being a carrier. I just thought it looked cool. Be honest. A lot of it is just like the coolness factor. Of course, I want this to be a very functional ship as a carrier and mobile base. So basically, it's got this big, long, straight through hangar area. Now, the front door is a 5x9 door, so it is smaller and more limited to exit out the front. The back door is a 13x7 door, so that can accommodate the big stuff being parked in there. And then, of course, an awful lot of flight deck space for lots of SVs. As in release schedules, this Sunday I plan on releasing this Tier 2 MCRN Talon. And also this Tier 1 unnamed ship. I did kind of skin this up a little bit at this time and modified some of the blocks and things like that. I do have some questions on this one on what you guys would rather see and what you think might be more practical. Now, the role this ship would play right now is a long-range scout ship because it has warp drive. But it's steel construction on the main hull and mostly carbon substrate out on the outer wings. It's not very durable, and nor does it have much in guns. Of course, you could shoot some drones maybe, but beyond that, I wouldn't really use this to engage POIs or anything with. If I were to get rid of the warp drive and add in some more guns, potentially some rocket launchers, and possibly a little bit more storage, do you think that would be a better idea for a Tier 1 ship over having a warp capable ship? I don't really want to put out two versions of the same thing again, so I'm just I gotta debate on which way I want to go with it. One last thing I don't like about the ship is my current wings. I'm using the old wings due to the fact that I only need to use 2 to make this big area fill in all the way out to these outer points. But I lose the ability to color them like this setup over here. Side effect though is I could use the modular wings on this as well, but the shapes aren't exactly right with the modular wings, and I would have to use a lot more wing blocks, making this ship heavier, and I don't know, it'd make it cost a little bit more and heavier if I did that. But I would basically, it's a cosmetic thing. It's basically so I could have like a red and gray stripe on the wings basically in the end. So curious on your thoughts on that as well. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to show today. I think that's about it. So yeah, curious on your thoughts on material on this base, final material, and I do plan on releasing this 2 weeks from now, so it'll be the following, not this Sunday, but the Sunday after that. I plan on releasing this and this Tier 3 MCRN Marauder. And that's kind of, so that'll be 4 releases in the next 2 weeks yet. And then future projects, obviously I want to get cracking on this again. This is going to be a Tier 4 CV. This is also going to be a Tier 4 CV, but I really feel if the tier values were adjusted some, this could be a Tier 3 CV instead, which I think would be kind of cool. But if I got to go Tier 4, I got to go Tier 4 with it. Another question I asked on the last video too was how many of you plan on using CPU versus not using CPU, and the results I got were kind of mixed. I would say about 60% don't plan on using the CPU and about 40% do. So I was just trying to determine, you know, on that feedback on what I should be building for primarily, and because it's so mixed, I'm probably going to have to mostly follow CPU. But if there's something I want to build that can't work with CPU, then I'm just going to do it anyway, because I need it to be fun, you know. And I do get tired of building little stuff all the time. And I've been seeing like I looked at like the new releases on the workshop, and what I'm seeing is just this overwhelming majority of these tiny little ships right now, and that's because of the, you know, new A11, and it's a new thing, and everybody wants to build stuff for it. And I get that, and I'm the same way too. But it's kind of depressing because, you know, I got used to seeing some big, really cool things on the workshop fairly frequently, and now it's like getting overran by bunches of little dinky little ships, which can be cool and they can look nice, but I mean, seeing something really big and cool and impressive versus you know, tiny little ships, I mean, there's a difference there. And I don't know how that plays. You know, if new people are looking at the game and all they see is all these little things, it doesn't look very inspiring, I would say. When you start seeing crazy all this kind of stuff, I think people would really get like more into the game. Like, oh my God, you can build that, versus oh my God, you could build this little fighter thing that's dinky. um, but you can build them all, and the tiers allow for most of it. Where I have the biggest problem at this point in time is on HVs and stuff like that, and SVs. Like on the last video, I kind of showed I was kind of messing around with the MX1 and I had to cut some thrusters from it and remove this and that and the other thing. And it's like, and I don't want to release new versions of all these ships and keep the existing ones there too. It's just too many posts and too much flooding of the workshop, and I don't want to do that. So I got to make a choice on whether I keep these things intact and original to be used by the people that aren't using CPU, or if I hack them apart and make them kind of worse so they can be used with CPU moving forward. And it's not a place I ever wanted to be at. I mean, it's like, yeah, I'm kind of for maintaining a lot of the items, but I've got so many items now that it's like impossible to keep up with. There's just too many, and when I'm going from like post to post, occasionally I get a comment on, past ships, and it's like, hey, when are you going to update this, and when are you going to update this, and when are you going to update this other one? And it's like, oh my God, I got so many like that. Literally, I've got like 50 more requests to update existing things, and if I go that path, I won't be able to really do anything new anymore. It'd just be like trying to maintain what's already there. And I absolutely like to build new stuff better than updating it, unless it's something major like the refit of the Persis. That was a different story. That was like a complete like kind of rebuild of the entire ship, sort of. And I want to look at the Nemesis and Gigacore with that as well in the future. Both those ships are pretty dated at this point in time and need to be updated, like the Persis. But those can be in itself, depending on how crazy I go with it, could be up to like a 40-hour project each. That's about what the amount of hours it took me to take the original Persis and switch it out to the CV2 version. Granted, I changed body lines and styles and new thrusters and detailed it and completely revamped the entire interior on the ship in the process. But I would want to do the same type of level of things to those other ships as well. So I don't know. I'm all over the board on what I should actually work on. One of the things I did want to hit soon is building a legit space carrier. This obviously isn't going to cut it, and now this is just kind of a standard carrier. For a legit space carrier, it's going to need to be big. I got to scale it up quite a bit. This is just not going to cut it for docking big ships on it and things like that. So I don't know how big it's going to be, and I'm not exactly sure how much thrust it's going to have or how much it's going to need yet. So I'm going to try to work out the details again on that one and see where things come out at. But that is a future project I definitely want to get into pretty soon. Also, with the new Martian stuff, I might also put out that new color palette. I kind of showed that a little bit on the last video. In fact, I think I still have a couple things over here. I was kind of tooling around with it. I haven't quite finalized it yet, but the first color palette I wanted to put out would be more or less kind of making it look like it would fit into the human faction. And the second planned color palette is to kind of embrace the homeworld look, which would be more of a yellow rather than the orange, but they're very, very similar in their color schemes already, so that is a very easy convert on those. But all right. Anyway, y'all have a nice weekend, and let me know any questions, comments, or let me know what material you'd like to see this finally done in, and how you'd like this Tier 1 SV to actually be. A warp capable scout ship like it is now, or something more generic with a bit more guns and a bit more storage, basically. Either way, it's going to be a Tier 1, so it's not going to be like an ultra good combat ship or anything specifically. It's just going to be a cheap starter ship to get around and get some basic functions done with. All right. Well, y'all have a good day. See you later.